Slido app. Let me just pick one here. Let's see, okay, well, the one that's on the top of my pad says, the example of Slovakia and Poland is inspiring and proves that changes are possible in any country. In what year will Ukraine join the EU? Even during the war? Who wants to take that one?
To be honest, I don't think that it's realistic that a country joins the EU during a war, but I also think that sooner or later there will be no negotiations, so I don't think that we will have the war as it is now in 2026. So I think latest next year. I hope there will be a way to out and negotiations to come.
My contribution to this question is that Ukraine will join the EU when fighting is stopped, with the real prospect of sustainability.
I saw you reacting.
I am a bit more skeptical. Maybe it is a very difficult question, and without the peaceful development, and some dreamers in this conference are usually announce Ukraine must win the war. I think the main target must be Ukraine must not to lose the war. It is more important because it is impossible to win in spite very massive help in weapons and so on. Ukrainian way to European Union will be very difficult, and it is not question of today, it is question of 10, 20 years. But they have to have this dream and this positive influence of this way. So to change rule of law, to change, to reduce corruption, because every war increase corruption, not decrease as everybody is listening now and so on. And this way will be very, very, very difficult. I wish to Ukraine, I was there 100 times from 90s to this year, and the society is not prepared, and the war must finish. It's the first precondition to start some discussions.
Prime Minister Biden?
Just to add, first, I think there is a false and somewhat cynical realism that describes Ukraine as a proxy war only between the US and Russia and China in the waiting room. Those are all obviously realpolitik existing factors, but it kind of completely discounts the will of the Ukrainian people who are dying for a dream of belonging to the West, which in our countries many people are quite skeptical about now. But interestingly, those who are out want in. Those who are in are getting skeptical, I think, for the wrong reasons. But those people are dying to get into the European Union, and therefore we should respect that, and you should not take hope away from them. But I'm not in politics today, so it's just as a citizen. The other thing I wanted to say is, Ukraine joining the EU requires not just, I agree with that, not just a sustainable peace situation, it also requires the EU to change its operations. Because the EU internal operations cannot be managed already in the current format. It's a lame duck, it's creating, especially in foreign policy, but many other areas, it's creating a constant disappointment and punches below its weight. And unless the EU is able to reform itself internally, to be able to receive new countries, it will not have the political consensus to receive those. So, and that's less bloody, but equally difficult than stopping that war, in my observation.
Can I add just one thing? So I like the idea of not taking away hope of people where hope is needed. At the same time, I think it's also good to be fair and transparent with partners and not to create hope which will never become a reality. And I
False hope, you're saying.
yeah, and I see it a bit in the Western Balkans, for example. So if you look at the Western Balkans, there was a lot of hope, there was a lot of enthusiasm, there was a lot of support for the idea of becoming members of the European Union. There was a clear plan, there was always said it's not a political decision, you have to fulfill criteria, so it's all about the criteria, it's not a political decision. If you look at the situation now, because of the war, and I understand that there is a huge focus on Ukraine, Ukraine took a major step, yeah, and at the same time, nobody talks about the Western Balkans. So you have population there who sees that it's probably not only about fulfilling criteria. You have people there who now learn that the focus has completely shifted, and this causes frustration. So from my perspective, I like the idea of not to take away hope, but at the same time, I think we have to be careful not to do the same mistakes too often.
But I don't think it's contradicting. I'm with you on that. I think the Western Balkans, we have been making a strategic mistake, we as Europe, for a very long time. In geopolitics, there is no vacuum. Those countries have been standing in a queue for a very long time, waiting to get into the EU. We keep them waiting. And after a while, if you stand in a queue and it's not moving, you tend to join a shorter, faster queue. And there are many people offering those from the east, from the southeast and the northeast.
But it's not their fault. It's
not their fault. I think it's us, and therefore, I think the EU. I would think the right course of action is the EU to agree to EU countries agree to reforms which allow the EU to offer a relevant future for the Western Balkans and Ukraine, which is inspiring for them, and which allows the EU to operate in such an enlarged version, which cannot be the current status quo.
Prime Minister Topolánek.
Brilliant discussion, because we moved from Central Europe to EU, because the problem is not only in Ukraine. Europe is not prepared for enlargement. Yeah? We have to reform, but deeper integration is not the goal. It shouldn't be. It won't be in order. Yeah? And this discussion, we are not prepared for this discussion inside European Union structures. It is one of the biggest problems. The problem of Ukraine is internal, maybe, but Europe is not prepared, generally.
It just sounds like on this 20th anniversary of so many of these countries ascending to EU membership, you have essentially buyer's remorse. Was it not what you expected it would be?
No, but I think what is very true and what is clear is if you want to have enlargement, you cannot have a deeper and closer union at the same time. Yeah, it's either being bigger and more diverse, or being smaller and having an always closer union. So I think these two goals don't really fit.
We went horizontal in the past, and now we need to go vertical. And Gordon is very right. We need to change our decision making. We need to promote our internal reform. And the problem is that we need unanimity when it comes to foreign policy issues and defense security. And we all know where the elephant in the room is. I like my old friend Viktor Orban, but it is difficult to promote such changes with him if he's putting his leg every morning at the door. So this is our weakness. Maybe, Mirek, maybe I would say we are ready mentally, psychologically, by institutions, but the problem is, in my eyes, the question how to overcome this blockage in these days.
I am the biggest Eurosceptic from this panel, maybe. I think we have to come back to the base of European values. We have to come back to economic cooperation. We have to resign from such common policies in this situation now. Will be maybe European Union is not prepared for this discussion to be principle of a la carte. We don't have euro. We don't have any problem.
But you pay by euro more and more. Will you pay with euro?
Of course, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? But I think this discussion is about bigger free access, and we have to define, it is the biggest problem, to define the smallest overall or common principles fulfilled for everybody in every time. It is discussion about veto principle and Hungary approach sometimes and so on. But the discussion is not prepared, and the elites from European Union are not willing to start this discussion this way.
I think I'll give the elephant in the room the last word and
Don't
brief.
feel like an elephant.
Thank you.
But I didn't want to comment specifically on Hungary. What I wanted to reflect on is, yes, I think we should go back to the basics. What is the mission of the European Union? What's the raison d'etre that European Union exists? I think it changed a lot. It was a coal and steel union, and basically to stop the war coming back to Europe. Then it became a social project. Then it became an enlargement project. But since the early 2000s, it's with globalization and the reshaping of global powers, the European Union's mission for its citizens is to allow us to survive with our European values and lifestyle. Because no country, even the largest economy, Germany, could not be competitive in a world where economic and sort of defense and other powers coincide. Only this scale of market and this scale of power together can help us to maintain our relevance. This basically, in politics there is a saying: if you don't sit at the table, you will find yourself on the menu.
Mm-hmm.
And the question for the European Union is whether it finds itself on the menu or it can stay at the table where decisions are made. And that we can only achieve in a larger format. Now, this format has to allow for national identities. I don't want to be a European only, I want to be Hungarian as long as I live and my kids and grandkids live. And I want to keep that identity. But if we let Europe down and don't reflect on these external challenges, then we will become irrelevant and we will be exploited.
Thank you all for just a fabulous discussion. Audience members, I'm sorry we don't have time. I wish you would raise